Hello guys, how are you?
I'm Hardeep Singh. Welcome back to your own YouTube channel. IELTS updates and recent exams. For more updates related to recent IELTS exam writing test topics, listening, reading, practice test, and speaking, you can guesswork. Please guys participate in everyday listening and reading practice test to achieve your desired band score in your actual IELTS exam. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Press the bell icon for the upcoming notifications. Don't forget like, subscribe and share my YouTube channel and my Facebook page, IELTS updates and recent exams.
Part 1.
First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
In today's lecture, we'll begin with an overview of the impact of tourism on the societies and cultures of the host area. Then we'll look at some case studies. One model for the socio-cultural impact of tourism has been provided by Doxy. You'll find a reference in your reading list. He called his model the Iridex. That's a contraction of Irritation Index, and it attempts to show how the attitudes of local people to tourists and tourism change over the years. Doxy identifies 4 stages. He calls the first stage euphoria, happiness, because initially the tourists are regarded as a novelty, and because of this they're welcomed by everyone in the host area. But as well as that, there's another reason for the people in the host community to welcome tourists. Local people realize that tourism brings scope for economic benefits. As tourist development begins to increase, however, local interest in the visitors becomes sectionalized. That means that some sections of the local population become involved with tourists, while others don't. And it is increasingly the case that commercial rather than social factors are influencing relationships between tourists and the host community. People are less interested in the tourists for their own sake. Doxy calls this stage apathy. If development continues to increase, apathy may change to annoyance. What's causing this? Well, development of the tourist area may start to spiral up out of control, and this is often accompanied by congestion, which is going to make life difficult for local people. So the policymakers, the government, the local authorities and so on provide more infrastructure for the area, more roads, more car parks and so on, to try to help cope with the influx of tourists. But the lives of the local people are made increasingly difficult, and in the final stage of the model, annoyance has turned to antagonism and open hostility to the tourists. And now, all the detrimental changes to lifestyles in the host area are, fairly or unfairly, seen as due to the tourists.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
Well, This sort of pathway is certainly a fairly good reflection of what happens in some tourist destinations. But Doxey's model has drawn a number of criticisms. The most significant is that it suggests a very negative attitude to the socio-cultural effects of tourism. The fact that the model is unidirectional, that it only works in one direction, seems to suggest that decline in the host-visitor relationship is inevitable. Now, in practice, fortunately, things aren't always quite like that. If you look at real situations, you'll see that the relationships between local people and tourists are rather more complicated and prone to greater variation than this model suggests. So the model is really rather oversimplified. In fact, studies have highlighted quite a few positive effects of tourism. For example, Doxey's model doesn't look at the effects on the tourists themselves. They may well benefit from increased understanding of the host society and culture. Then, traditional crafts in the host area may be revitalized because tourism provides new markets, such as the souvenir trade, for example. So, instead of these traditional skills being lost, local people are encouraged to develop them. There may also be more long-lasting changes, which actually lead to the empowerment of both groups and individuals in the host area. For example, tourism creates openings for employment for women, and through giving them a chance to have a personal income, it allows them to become more independent. In addition, because tourism tends to work through a very few languages that have worldwide usage, those working in the tourist industry may be encouraged to acquire new languages, and this will empower them through providing wider access to globalized media and improving their job prospects in a wider context. Right, now we'll take a short break there, and then we'll look at a couple of case studies and see how far the points we've discussed so far apply to them.
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 2.
You will hear a presenter on a radio show. The presenter is talking to the organizer of an arts festival.
First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 17. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 17.
Hi again. I'm joined today by Ben Knightley from the Media and Arts Centre. He's here to tell us about the launch of the city's Arts Festival. Hi, Ben. This year has a particular focus, doesn't it?
It does, yes. This year we want to encourage more people who would not normally describe themselves as being creative to get involved with some of our many events and workshops. Not simply turning up as spectators, but to get involved themselves, to get their hands dirty, as it were. There's such a wide offering this year that I'm sure we'll have something to suit all tastes.
You were telling me earlier how beneficial being creative can be for us.
Absolutely. I recently attended a drawing workshop and, even if I do say so myself, came away with a very good sketch I'd done. But what was particularly surprising for me was my feeling of pride and joy when I looked at the sketch again and showed it to the family. It really took me back to the feelings I had as a youngster when I'd made something. I realized that, even as an adult, we can get just as much pleasure and happiness from creative activity. Actually, research has shown that the more we allow ourselves to be creative, the happier we feel. And the more positive our frame of mind, the more creative and the more curious we become about the world we live in.
Well, you've certainly persuaded me. So what kind of events can we look forward to?
We want to try and include as wide a range of people as possible this year, from people already involved in the creative arts through to elderly people who haven't been creative in years. So, for example, we're inviting people in the creative industries who occasionally suffer from writer's block to join us on one of our creative walks. Walking has been proved to aid creative thinking, and we're running a series of walks during the spring and summer around some of the many beauty spots in and around the city. Then there's our knitting program. We're working with schools in the area to invite grandparents in to teach kids how to knit. It's a great opportunity to bridge the generation gap and rekindle that interest in knitting you may have forgotten about. We also aim to inspire and support people without jobs through a series of free courses, starting with creative writing workshops. These courses will give them an insight into the basic ingredients of a good short story and help participants get their ideas into shape. And for anyone out there who is looking for the chance to explore their creative side, come along to our printmaking workshops. You'll have the chance to study some fantastic prints by local artists, explore different print processes, and take home a print of your own to hang on a wall.
Before you hear the rest of the radio show, you have some time to look at questions 18 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 18 to 20.
Excellent. So how do we go about getting involved?
If anyone is interested in joining one of these sessions, it's important that you contact us first, as places need to be booked beforehand. We ran similar sessions last year and demand was high. As I said previously, there's no charge for any of the workshops, and materials, where appropriate, will be provided on the day. You can get further information on our website, and if you don't have access to the internet, call us on 514-2261. The booking office is open Monday to Friday from 9 to 5, but closes early on a Saturday at 12:30.
Many thanks, Ben.
That is the end of part 2.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 3.
You'll hear a conversation between students Robert and Monica and a tutor about personal marketing. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 23. Now listen carefully and answer the questions 21 to 23.
You've been looking at different styles of personal marketing in small companies and the workplace in the UK. So how's the coursework going, Robert?
Well, I've been looking at why some people decide to run their own business. Market research shows that personal management is a critical area. When you think about any small business, it is usually a family business. They are also trained and developed as a group. Of course, they may have different ideas, but these ideas are based on their experiences and education. So it is critical that all members are able to brainstorm with each other.
So what do you think about differences of opinion in the workplace?
I think that there are many reasons why this can occur. The research particularly focuses on personality managing within a small company. Actually, it clearly shows the difference between men and women in terms of their methods and solutions at work.
Right. So, did you research the effects of family members working together within a small company?
Of course I did. One advantage of this is being able to share thoughts and ideas with others in a way that stimulates the mind and helps save money. However, unfortunately, each new idea can cause controversy between employees and cause problems in marketing and management. Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at the questions 24 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 24 to 30.
I agree, Robert. Now 2 more things we need to talk about are personal talent and managing it effectively. So, Monica, did you have a perception of different talents among employees? And how do you think it is efficient for employers to work?
In my case, teamwork is emphasised in the workplace, so the personal skills of employees can often be overlooked. The thing that employers should be targeting is an acceptance of other views and filter responsibility appropriately.
That's right, Monica. However, unfortunately, many top managers think it is too difficult to make a unit when all employees' ideas are put together.
I see. That should be the case, but I think one of the hardest tasks for employers is considering the wants and needs of each employee, such as finding ways of cooperating, compromising, and sometimes persuading the employees when they don't accept the target. So it requires creative and broad thinking with other people.
So what kind of people do you think are best for these companies?
Well, the best solution starts from when the companies are looking for new staff. Of course, the responsibility of the Human Resource Department should be to choose the best staff. Also, they have to learn and research personal management and psychological tests with confirmation of qualifications. It's so essential for them.
So, how about if the best team members are overestimated?
No, they're not overestimated. You just need to learn steadily if you're working in an organisation.
Right. So, how should managers cope with this situation?
It's a carrot and stick. If all employees are following the rules and policies of the company, a manager may give them an incentive in order to save time and costs. Also, the incentive can be either a working condition they want to change or money.
Great. It's your turn, Robert. How important is it for a manager to be a good performer?
Managing CEO means not only sharing all employees' thoughts, but also understanding the culture of the organization. Actually, there needs to be a balance between creative minds and personal decisions during working time.
Exactly. Well done, Robert.
Thank you, sir. Clearly, sometimes it is hard for the managing CEO to control the system. For instance, they should manage the changes in the workplace caused by crisis or loss with caution.
Right. Sometimes certain situations cause problems for the future management of the company. Do you follow me, Robert?
Yes, I do. Actually, I have one more thing to say about high stress levels in the workplace. It takes time for a balance to be found between employers and employees.
That's a very interesting idea. So, let's move on and talk about the marketing mix.
That is the end of part 3.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 4.
You'll hear part of a lecture given by Archaeology about art of Incan civilization. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer the questions 31 to 40.
Good morning, everyone. The first workshop is in preparation for our anthropological fieldwork in the Incan civilization of South America. We are so happy to have received funding for separate studies for this field trip from our organization. So I shall expect over 90% attendance from you. In this workshop, I'm going to begin by offering a brief introduction to contemporary studies on wall painting, and in the second part, I'm going to show some examples of fieldwork, so please listen carefully. I'm going to focus on interpretations of wall painting art in Peru. Fortunately, we are going to explain an area where you can find some of the most critical sites in the world. And I deeply hope to show you how they were made. This is the first and most important chapter we must study. In Peru there are both engravings and paintings. Many of the engravings show totemism, and most historians tend to think that the purpose of these was complicated and mixed. This wall art was like a museum guidebook with pictures to teach students about the artworks. They represent nature, sun, moon, wind, water, fire, and so forth. However, there were several mysteries. When you first see a typical Inca engraving or painting, you can see that the tracks are sophisticated. There are tracks for the movement of nature. Today we'll learn how to make tracking. Now, there are two more things to consider. Why are some of the engravings of natural phenomenon very delicate but clearly ideological and others realistic? Another mystery is some of the realistic natural phenomenon that's in the engravings. For instance, some have god faces. Many researchers now think that these are pictures that were engraved by the craft masters. They believed they could use the providence of nature they had drawn so the hunters could then mimic them for prosperity. Most historians thought that the visitors looked at the wall paintings to understand their origins and solve the puzzles of the art and culture of the pictures. Now many scholars believe that the wall art was more about enchantment, and we'll learn more about them next session. In the third part of the workshop, I'd like to explain some of the implications of our explored prehistoric site and understanding the wall arts. We're going to visit lots of sites related to them. The single largest problem at these sites is visitors unintentionally touching and scratching the wall paintings. Whenever you go over to a site in Inca, you'll learn and conserve many things made from the Incas because they are of good value to prehistoric research. Through the field trip, these visitors are able to get an educational experience. and there are some essential rules to show you. There are traps that can happen suddenly and are very dangerous. Actually, they were a safeguard against enemies. So you should always follow the information board in the forest with a local tour guide. So, how are we going to feel the wall painting in our field trip? Don't forget, no touching, just leave it. The wall painting is fragile, and it is also a part of Peruvian heritage and a national treasure. This lesson is joining with a local community on the site. They run a special course and a trip around the historical site once a month. Obviously, scratching or touching on the wall paintings can destroy in a moment what has lasted for thousands of years of Incan civilization. Please try to be extra careful and look out for your mates. Look carefully everywhere. And lastly, please don't move any old materials to take a picture. Well, that's about all I want to say, but if you have any questions, please ask them now. Right, do you have any questions so far?
That is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
So guys, don't forget like, subscribe and share my YouTube channel and my Facebook page. IELTS updates and recent exams. For more updates related to recent IELTS exam writing test topics, listening, reading, practice test and speaking, you got guesswork. Please guys, participate in everyday new IELTS listening and reading practice tests to achieve your desired band score in your actual IELTS exam. For more IELTS material, visit my official website www.ieltsupdatesandrecentexams.com. The link is given below in the description. If you need PDF files of latest IELTS material, then please join my Telegram channel. So guys, please write your score below the comment section. Again, thanks for listening. God bless you all guys. Stay tuned, stay safe.